An eccentric visionary who had trouble holding one job for long, Marston studied psychology at Harvard. In 1914, he became the first to use a person's blood pressure to determine whether they were lying. Though the method was far from perfect, it led to the creation of the polygraph still used today, and entered the comics as Wonder Woman's lasso of truth, which forces its captive to speak honestly. Hence the skimpy costume, the tiara, and the patriotic color scheme, respectively. The bullet-deflecting bracelets had a secret inspiration. Marston was a believer in free love with 3 female life partners, who also collaborated with him on his scientific and comics work. One of those women, Olive Byrne, wore thick bracelets, much like Wonder Woman's, in lieu of a wedding ring. Marston was a big believer in the turn-of-the-century women's movement, which advocated for voting rights and access to birth control. In fact, Marston believed that women were inherently superior to men, not a belief of mainstream feminism, then or now, with, as he told the Washington Post, twice the emotional development, the ability for love, than man has. Pillipaw's book. He predicted in 1937 that within 1,000 years, the United States would be run entirely by women. Wonder Woman was meant to be an ultra-patriotic model of the justice and compassion that women could bring to the nation. The backstory of Wonder Woman, born of ancient gods and raised on an island of female warriors called the Amazons, is derived from Greek mythology. Marston wanted Wonder Woman's language to reflect this, while keeping the emphasis on what Marston's wife Elizabeth Holloway called feminine expletives. Examples included Suffering Sappho, Great Hera, and Athena's Shield. The last was suggested by Holloway to DC Comics as an alternative to the exclamation Great Caesar's Ghost. 1 year after she first began appearing in DC titles like Sensation Comics and All-Star Comics, Wonder Woman was already the publisher's most popular superhero after Superman and Batman, who were introduced in 1938 and 1939, respectively. That fall, she became the first female superhero to join the Justice Society, the earliest version of the Justice League, as the group's secretary. The women profiled in these 2 to 4 page sections included Florence Nightingale, Joan of Arc, Sojourner Truth, Abigail Adams, and Susan B. Anthony, along with important but lesser-known figures in women's history like home economics creator Ellen Swallow Richards and astronomer Caroline Herschel. In 1942, the National Organization for Decent Literature, composed of Catholic bishops, condemned the character for being not sufficiently dressed. A decade later, psychiatrist Frederick Wertham declared that Wonder Woman promoted S&M and lesbianism in his book Seduction of the Innocent, which led the comics industry to develop new censorship standards, the Comics Code Authority. After World War II, women who had been in the workforce resumed their roles as homemakers, and Wonder Woman's politically progressive storylines became unfashionable. Instead of fighting for justice, she tried babysitting a dinosaur, becoming a fashion model, and writing a Lonely Hearts column. Even Wonder Women of History was replaced with a feature called Marriage à la Mode, which detailed the customs and traditions of matrimony. In the 1960s, Wonder Woman gave up her superpowers entirely to be with love interest Steve Trevor, permanently transforming into her human alter ego Diana Prince. The editors of the feminist publication wanted to pay tribute to the Wonder Woman they remembered from their childhoods, who fought wartime dictators, protested unfair labor conditions at home, and would always break their, literal, shackles put on her by men. but the comics were slow to pick up the feminist pace. In 1972, a series of women's lib stories, including one in which Diana Prince defended an abortion clinic, was cancelled after the first issue. DC finally began assigning some female writers to Wonder Woman in the 1980s, though the first woman to write the character long-term was Gail Simone from 2007 to 2010. In April 2017, after 75 years, Wonder Woman finally got its first all-female creative team. Cursed for movies and TV. That statement was the headline of an article in The Hollywood Reporter that ran after the first director of the Wonder Woman movie, Michelle MacLaren, dropped out. She was replaced by Patty Jenkins. There were many failed attempts to bring Wonder Woman to the big screen, including a 1999 film meant to star Sandra Bullock. Most of the Wonder Woman TV shows developed over the years never even made it to the air, with the notable exception of the hit series that ran from 1975-1979 starring Linda Carter. The THR article's author claimed that the problem was the character herself, because she's not accessible to audiences. Of course, the author was ignoring a fundamental truth about Wonder Woman. In the past 75 years, every time she's been knocked down by a man, she always rises up. Hey, if you like this video, give a big thumbs up. Then if you enjoy this, share with your friends and family and your favorite social media sites. You have an idea future top 10 video, let us know in the comments section below.